Hello, hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode, the 35th episode of Off the Mark, and our very first episode for the summer. I am your host, Miss Studio, and with me, as always, is my beautiful, most famous, most beautiful, amazing, most co-host in the world. You're the most co-host in the world.
Most host, co-host.
You're the most co-hostess in the world. With the most.
Thank you.
Miss Kali, how are you, my dear?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you, Tuti.
I tried so hard not to butcher that one. I made it so much
that was
worse.
A tongue twister.
Right?
That's quite the lead-in. Thank you.
Too much going on. Anyway, so today's episode, we're going to bring you Fauci's emails and how he's been lying to us an entire year about the mask that we've been telling you guys not to wear this whole time. You know what I mean? I'm just saying. We're also going to bring you Hunter Biden.
Not to be that guy, but...
I mean, I'm cool with being that guy at this point because I've had so many people threaten me and my children. I hope you die of COVID.
Right.
And all this other, wait a minute, whoa, chill. You know what I mean? So that's going to be fun to bring up. Also, Hunter Biden, one of our favorite people in all of the earth, Mr. Hunter Biden, Mr. Ninja of Silence, Mr. Somehow amazingly just getting away with literally crime everywhere. And his cool guy text that he sent to his lawyer. That's going to be fun to go through. And the hypocrisy behind how him using the N-word doesn't seem to affect his life at all, while others like several country stars and Paula Deen and Michael Richards and several other people have used it in the past, some very derogatory, some very casually, much like Mr. Biden, and just see exactly where we stand on that one and why we don't stand against Hunter Biden and why he's not canceled. Now, granted, you can't get canceled for doing anything. He did nothing. He's done nothing. But, he's still the president's son. So we'll go from there. Briefly, we're going to bring up Kamala Harris and her invisible visit to the border. And at the end, Miss Meeks Kali is going to bring up our first summer solstice cleanse. And she's going to introduce that to us and see how many of you are going to pop in and join us. I personally am very excited about it. Again, I got to give my body a break sometimes. I'm not the healthiest person in the world, but these type of reboosts and restarts are always going to help. So without further ado, Miss Kali, where do you stand on these Fauci emails, man? And what's up with all the silence, bro?
Okay, so, just a year ago, you were a crazy person to think any of these thoughts. If you brought it up in conversation, you were one of those people, right? And you were clearly misled by Facebook and all the crazy uncles on there and stuff.
QAnon and Alex Jones and all the
sectors that kind of claimed these common sense schools of thought of, wait, there's an outbreak in Wuhan. You mean next to that virology lab in the same town? This couldn't possibly be connected. Don't even ask. Don't even point.
Right.
It was completely.
Don't even look at it.
Right. It was completely off the table, and that was kind of the beginning of all this cancel culture and to some extent, and all the silencing and the fact checkers and all that kind of stuff on Facebook really took off around, at the start of COVID, and when people were starting to try and make these kinds of connections of maybe it didn't occur naturally from a bat. And but since the very beginning of the pandemic, Fauci has been the sword of truth, and whatever he said was the golden rule, and nobody dare go against him because of science.
Right.
And
because the science.
So, he represents science. Science is infallible. So therefore Fauci is infallible. And, this entire time, aside from, Trump's contention with him, which is hilarious.
Right.
Little side plot. But aside from that, all the celebrity and stuff and politicians have been so adoring of Fauci and his credibility and his guidance and stuff like that. And they've had celebrity interviews with Jennifer Gardner, where she was like, "Thank you for never lying to us," as her introduction of him. It's smooth.
Right, exactly. Right.
So it's just a funny setting for these now to surface. And you would think that would be a topic of interest to a lot of people, because it affects a lot of people, the whole world. Why not? And yet it's being swept under the rug, much like Hunter Biden's laptop and all these other, particular stories. So even as there has been a few headlines of like Fauci's under fire and, his backlash and criticism, it's still been too far and few between, and very like dampening of the repercussions of him having that. So why don't we pull up some of these videos of which we're referring. So here, let me share screen. Okay, so here's our first example of the Fauci emails. And yeah, that here's an example of one at the beginning of the pandemic. So this is back in February, even before we closed everything down mid-March. And so Fauci's writing to Sylvia Burwell, masks are really for infected people to prevent them from spreading infection to people who are not infected, rather than protecting uninfected people from acquiring infection. The typical mask you buy in the drugstore is not really effective in keeping out virus, which is small enough to pass through the material. It might, however, provide some slight benefit in keeping out gross droplets if someone coughs or sneezes on you. I do not recommend that you wear a mask, particularly since you are going to a very low-risk location. Your instincts are correct. Money is best spent on medical countermeasures, such as diagnostics and vaccines. Safe travels, best regards, Tony, as he goes by with the familiars. Yeah, so that has some implications here because we have been wearing these masks. They've been required to do basic functions of being able to go into a store and purchase your food or do commerce, to go to doctor's appointments, or basically any part of society. We've had these masks required of us for over an entire year now. And here we're seeing that even before it was starting to be implemented, that Fauci had already acknowledged that that wasn't its use, that it's not being utilized as directed or as it's capable of. So here, let's go back to the video. And then another email that Fauci had sent is this one to from Christian Anderson to Fauci. They say, "Hi, Tony. Thanks for sharing. Yes, I saw this earlier today, and both Eddie and myself are actually quoted in it. It's a great article, but the problem is that our phylogenetic analyses aren't able to answer whether the sequences are unusual at individual residues, except if they are completely off. On a phylogenetic tree, the virus looks totally normal, and the close clustering with bats suggests that bats serve as the reservoir. The unusual features of the virus make up a really small part of the genome, less than 0.1%. 0.10, yeah. So one has to look really closely at all the sequences to see that some of the features potentially look engineered. So they're basically saying, like, it'd be really hard for anybody to tell. We have a good team lined up to look very critically at this, so we should know much more at the end of the weekend. I should mention that after discussions earlier today, Eddie, Bob, Mike, and myself all find the genome inconsistent with expectations from evolutionary theory, but we have to look at this much more closely, and there are still further analysis to be done. So those opinions could still change. Is of interest to the current discussion. Yeah, and so essentially an article had came out and Fauci was sharing it with other members from the lab to see if they were concerned as well of there being any connection.
In other words, he already knew that they were working on COVID-19 or whatever coronavirus. It wasn't called COVID-19 back then, but he already knew that they were working and manipulating it. So he had an idea that this virus could have already come from the lab as opposed to this bat. And, these things remind me of Idiocracy, where we sit there and we believe such asinine things, such as like, oh, it came from a bat. Oh, okay. I get that. As opposed to seeing the more logical, instance that maybe it did come from, it was a lab leak, like that is impossible. There's movies, tons and tons of zombie movies made of such instances, and not to suggest that, we would have turned it to zombies, but come on, like that's a more logical explanation than, somebody ate a bat and got really, really sick off the bat.
Right.
A bat. The other side of that is when it was called coronavirus, when it first started coming out, people stopped buying Corona beer.
Right.
Not one had to do with the other. But that's the whole thing of the fear mongering, and why it goes back to idiocracy is like people just hear words, and it's like we sit there and we dodge these words, and
we have all these associations.
It's insane. That to me was silly enough. Corona beer is down in the sales because of coronavirus. Like, you really?
I'm not going to support them.
Right? But are you mad at the beer because of the bat?
They know what they did.
How does any of that make any sense? But yeah, and
it's clever of them to do their rebranding then, that it's COVID-19 or SARS-CoV and all those kind of different names that we're giving it to it now.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing is we've been, and vaccinated people are still wearing masks. Unvaccinated people are still wearing masks. We're all sitting there holding our breath, waiting for June 15th here in California for some miracle to happen where COVID-19 is going to completely disappear miraculously, and we all get to take off our masks simultaneously. Let me tell you this: most people will not take their mask off. Still, they're still going to sit there and be afraid and be wrapped with that thing wrapped around their head.
They've been announcing already in California that a lot of places you still are going to have the mask required, even though like technically it's not, and we can join in large crowds, but that for stores and movie theaters and stuff like that you'll probably still have to have a mask. And a lot of like companies and stuff are having a rule where if everybody in the room is vaccinated, then they can all have their masks off. But even if just one person was not vaccinated, then everyone has to wear their masks. Thanks.
Okay, how does any of that make any sense?
Right.
Like, how are we going to know either way unless we sit there and we're literally going to ask everybody, hey, you vaccinated? Hey, you vaccinated? Hey, you vaccinated? You know what I mean? Who's doing that?
That's going to take so long, though. If only we had some kind of card where it was just apparent, and who's going to want to look at it. What if you could just like scan it real quick as you're already going through the entrance? That's what we need, clearly, to solve all of this rigmarole. The only solution.
Did you say rigmarole? I love it. Yeah, I mean, but again, back to what I was saying. We have all this involvement and all these masks and all these mandates over a lie. The man didn't tell the truth from the get-go. The man knew these masks didn't work from the get-go. He flip-flopped over and over and over again, and none of us seem to see. All of us seem to say, trust the science. Well, the science keeps changing. No, the science doesn't change that way. Germs don't retract and go forward and retract and go. They don't do that. Germs don't have like they don't decide that way. There's no decisions made there. It's right. If we want to talk natural biology, we want to talk virology. We can talk that all day. We're not going to be right because none of us are virologists. Well, I bet you we're going to have a little bit more common sense in all the things that have been put out throughout this entire year. There's no way science flim-flams that way. Rigmarole, flim-flam. Girl, we're getting it. We are getting it. These 1940s terms.
All the girls over here.
Am I right? So that should be enough for us to try our best to break the chain when it comes to those masks. One, you're still here. If you didn't get sick, congratulations. Most of us got sick. I was one. Most of us got sick. Therefore, we have the antibodies. Therefore, go back to biology. Go read a book. You understand that this is how it works. I am Superman compared to those who haven't gotten sick, or those who got the vaccine. I feel like I have a little bit more of a chance if getting, and I never get sick. So for me to even get this insanely weird flu, and again, it's a weird strain. There's no lie about it. Which all more of a reason for me to believe it was man-made, because it didn't do the things that the flu does one bit for anybody. So and it did have a specific target. It did take out a specific type of person, and I think that went beyond health reasons. I think that went beyond their own health. but those are my own theories. I think there was a specific target for this virus, and I think that's it worked. Basically, it didn't, maybe not in the numbers that they were looking for, but it worked. Again, I see this coronavirus, this pandemic, as our next 9/11. A lot of people do, and it's been put out. It's been threaded in the news every once in a while that this is the new 9/11, and for different reasons. For reasons that people are scared and this and that. I say it's a new 9/11 because whatever plan they had behind it, it worked. Just like 9/11, it worked. So we'll see what's next. Anyway, but I digress. I'm sorry.
No, thank you.
But yeah, but the masks, we have to let them go. He already admitted over a year ago, that they don't work. Well, I only said that because we needed the masks for the nurses and for the doctors. And we didn't want you guys to buy all the masks. It's like, well, okay, then you lied to us.
Yeah. Either way, you're lying. Either you lied then or you're lying now.
Lied. Exactly.
And he's flip-flopped, like you said, a million times. So it's not just that he's lied once. He's like,
no.
And now it's 2 masks. Now it's 3. Now I'll take 8.
Right.
But now it's none.
On top of that, the only other thing I can point that's evidence that this man is wrong is how much they try to convince us that he's right. The same thing with Cuomo. And in California, the same thing with Newsom. Didn't work very well. Californians, we're fed up. Not that we're smart. We're just fed up. Most of us are living under the middle class line and or poverty line. Most of us, especially in the bigger cities, are on welfare and are locked in. And most of us like it that way. That's what's sickening about California, is all the homeless people have carte blanche. They're the ones kind of in charge of what's going on around here. California is mostly a dump right now. And again, most of us here like it that way. The ones who work their asses off around here say, no, this isn't right. So Newsom hasn't gotten away with a lot of things. And we haven't had the man crush on Newsom that we've had on Cuomo, the Cuomo homo or whatever right. Phrase they were trying to throw around. And Fauci, the same thing. Whitmore, one of the other murderers, governor murderers of Detroit, or I'm sorry, Michigan, had a Fauci pillow in her office. So when she would do interviews, she had an adorable Fauci pillow that she had in her office. Like, these people are insane. It just tells me the more they try to push these people on you, the more it tells me, yeah, there's something not right about these people. There's no reason for them to throw them and shove them down my throat the way they are. It goes for many aspects of the media.
Not to be so undisputed.
Exactly.
And that this isn't like his first rodeo, in a sense of he's been in these prominent positions of, being in the Natural Institute of Health and being like, serving the White House, that he could have seen, the progressions of this. He's had his hand in the pot this entire time, and he's been so undisputed. And people would say and keep chiming to trust the science, but there are so many doctors that would say that masks don't work for this or that reason. All the things he listed in his email, they were in agreement with him there, that it isn't the material isn't sufficient in blocking, the particles from going through. And even when we had the fires in California at the end of last summer in August or so, the CDC released an announcement not to go outside and that your mask wasn't sufficient in blocking the ash. But ash are bigger particles than a virus. So if the mask can't block ash, it's sure as hell not blocking a virus. But we just all accepted it, and the cognitive dissonance of but if you believe 2 + 2 = 5, and then you have to make it work, but then you have to build on that for the next equation, and then by the end your solution is way off from the actual problem. And like you said, we need to release these chains of these masks. This is what it has been, and there's a lot of stuff that's been circling on social media, pointing out that this, we've said it a lot of times on this cast, of it being biblical. This is the nature of these types of societies and cults, essentially, and that they have their idols. It's an idol worship. They have their gods that have the powers that they have to make their sacrifices, and they have their rituals. We've been having to cover our faces in masks and stand 6 feet apart. That's a ritual standard, so we've basically been put through this trauma cycle and gone through this whole brainwashing this past year with them. And this is kind of the nail in the coffin, or their last straw, where one of the karmic contracts of life is that that somebody has to be informed in that way. It's their own choice, that you can't like take somebody's free will from them. So by releasing these emails now, that's just another way of like the predictive programming that they do in their videos, that they're telling us what they're doing. It's out there, it's public record. I think the emails were even called up because of the Freedom of Information Act, that this concerns the public. And so now it's there. And if we don't read these and draw our common sense conclusions from it, then it's our own fault if we keep wearing our masks till June 15th and don't know how to tell the store or wherever we're trying to shop, or whoever's impeding us from just living our life in our God-given freedoms, like we've been saying since the beginning of this pandemic. Now it's on us. We're consenting, we're submitting to this new great reset,
Right. Agreed. And it goes a lot deeper than that. They're not just muzzling us physically. I mean, the fact that this entire year people have literally been silenced and have been taken out of existence when it comes to social media platforms, simply because they disagree with the science. And it's been more evident this year now than ever that main news sources are very biased and have no interest and balancing out the news. There's everything's always, it's all one-sided. There's only one way about things, and that's this way, and that's it. So you trust the science, and if you don't trust the science, then you're banned from it. You're silenced. You're silenced. And it doesn't seem like it's a big deal when it comes to us. But back to what Ms. Kelly just said about our God-given freedoms, these rights are unalienable. We were created to have the freedom to speak, to say the things, whether they're good or bad. The good or bad part is it's really up to how we're raised. You could be raised to be an asshole and say really, really bad things, but you know what? Unfortunately, you have the right to say those really, really bad things, and everybody else around you gets to look at you like you're an asshole. That's really all there was to it.
And it's really in how you use it too. Like a saw can, like, the same motion in one instance can be good and in another instance can be bad. So it's not even that the words are good or bad. It's just in how it's executed and utilized.
Agreed. And that's a good segue to the Hunter Biden thing. But before we go there, I want to just go back to Fauci real quick. 40 years ago, Anthony Fauci was in charge of the AIDS epidemic that was happening here in the United States. He had predicted 2 million people would pass away. Didn't happen. In fact, I think it's about 2 million people today that in total that have passed away from AIDS and HIV. He predicted that. I can't say he predicted, but he put out into the works that heterosexual people are just as likely to receive AIDS. And so, I mean, the AIDS pandemic that happened in the 80s and between the 80s and 90s, late 80s and 90s, that was now we were babies, but so obviously I don't remember it, but I do remember being early 90s and watching Real World, and that being a big deal because and the movie Philadelphia with Tom Hanks, so AIDS was a freaky big deal. Magic Johnson was HIV positive, which again was a huge deal.
That was kind of our introduction to it as kids.
Yeah, exactly. So apparently Fauci was in charge of it back then, and he was completely wrong back then. And it was swept under the rug. And here he comes again 40 years later to do the same exact thing, practically the same patterns, ignoring studies, ignoring other virologists, ignoring other doctors who actually had. And another thing about Fauci is when you interview him, since the emails have come out, interviewing him today, seeing it in the interviews that he's done since the emails have come out, he's very arrogant and very cocky. And he's even spoken about himself in a third person. And it's just so like mafioso, like weird, like it's just like
he feels untouchable.
Either he feels untouchable or he feels painted into a corner. So he's just going to let the nasty out at this point. Because it's like, who cares? He has enough followers. There's still people that are wearing the mask. There's still people that trust the science. And the truth is, at this point, if you're those people, you're just lazy. You're really just lazy and you don't want to think for yourself. And that doesn't do anybody good. Not you, not me. And the truth is, at this point, I don't want to call myself a patriot. I don't want to call myself a conservative. I need to call myself a survivalist, because being a survivalist means I have to choose me and mine over you without apology. And unfortunately, that's just how it's going to be. It's coming up to that point. If Fauci's painted in the corner and he's as nasty as he is, we have to make our own decisions to do what we have to do. And we got prep coming up. We got connections that we have to make. Food we have to store, water we have to store, ways to figure out how to communicate with each other when all lines are down. There's certain things that we eventually do have to do. And by eventually, I kind of mean like right now, because not only are they taking away the free speech, they're taking away the guns. And yes, these are the main typical points that any conspiracy theorist is going to tell you, but you know what? It's true. And it's coming to a head now. It's definitely coming to a head. And the line has been drawn in the sand, and the line keeps moving further and further and further, the more we stay silent. They keep drawing the line in the sand, saying, here, you guys, make your decision. Here, you guys, make your decision. And we don't. We keep pushing it. We don't want to make the decision to take the mask off, even though he's been wrong for 40 years. We made the decision to vote Joe Biden in, even though he's done nothing for 45 years. These are our choices that we're making. And again, there are strings behind the scenes. That is understandable. So whether we voted for him or not, is irrelevant in a sense. But we're still silent. We're still not saying anything. We're still not doing our research. We still haven't studied the Constitution. We still don't know exactly where we stand. And if we were more confident as to where we stood, we'd be able to say, not today. And the ones that are saying not today are the ones that, have the tinfoil hats on for most people. And maybe that's the stigma we need to break. But, how much more do we need to prove that we're not trying to be right? We're just simply trying to say the British are coming. Mm-hmm. How much more do we need to do that without sounding crazy? And the more you put on the television, the crazier people like us with logic and truth and facts and anecdotes and things that want to push the country to progress forward, and interconnectedly, like these things, they're real, and we don't want to be right. It's not about being right. It's about kind of just finding a way to connect with everybody so that we can all fight together, regardless of where you stand on a personal level, politically, religiously, heterosexually, homosexually, who cares? Something's not right for all of us. It's not right. We all see it. We just won't choose to do something about it because we disagree with our neighbor. And that's what we're saying. Once we can at least all collectively take the mask off, that's step one. Mm-hmm. And that'd be huge. It's been a hell of a year. Right.
To be among peoples again. Wow.
Right. I mean, what's funny is not necessarily funny, but it happened after 9/11. I've never seen America more united and yet more scared and more angry. So while we were united, we weren't filtering our emotions very well. Similar to last summer with BLM and Antifa and all the riots, we didn't filter our emotions very well. So we haven't learned much in the last 21 years. In that sense, it seems like we've regressed in that, we're more fearful and more reliant on the government as opposed to less. Right. It's a slippery slope, and it only took 21 years. Imagine the next 21 years when we just so relentlessly said, yes, please give me that mask. I need to be safe. We willingly gave it up. 2 weeks, piece of cake. I myself made the mistake because I have a high-risk child. I do understand that masks do work in hospital when you're sick and to stop the spread of germs and washing your hands and keeping sanitizer on you at all times. When you're sick, it doesn't work in the outside world when you're healthy. Healthy people should not be muzzled, period. I gave them the 2 weeks because I understood the logic behind the mask at the time. But none of us were sick. None of us got sick. And the people that were sick were already sick to begin with, in a sense. You know what I mean? My daughter included. The only reason why she always got sick is because she was born that way. That's why she's high risk. That's most people who got sick. We didn't see that because they weren't telling us that. Again, my situation's a little bit anecdotal, which is why I understood and gave them willingly the 2 weeks. And it turned into 3 weeks, and it turned into a year and a half. And it's going to turn into Mother's Day 2022, according to Dr. Fauci. Right. Doctor 2 times wrong for 40 years, Anthony Fauci. Insanity. Insanity, manity. And I totally lost the segue for Hunter Biden, goddammit.
We'll bring it back. No, you're so right that this is being our second 9/11, and it's so funny that we're so quick to dismiss of like, oh, those crazy conspiracy theorists, and that's kind of been our Achilles heel for a long time, is dismissing this like pact of society as, you know, being separate. And we think of these conspiracies as being so cliche, but how could they have been relevant for so many decades, and that they're
Right.
still being able to be said today? Like everything's
Right.
kind of pointing towards the same end, and it's not something that is just from the past 20 years. It's something that has replayed in nations for centuries of, you know, this rise and fall, the economy, the kind of angling and strategy of, you know, cornering people's rights and putting them into positions of, you know, oppression and confoundedness. So we're in this place now where we could have gone out of it. Our only way out of it is going to be when we unite, like you said. And instead, we're fighting over whether somebody's vaccinated or not, or whether they took their mask off too soon, or whether they took their mask
Right.
off like before they left the restaurant, or before they made it all the way to their car, or all these
Yeah.
things. And
Yeah.
yeah, and that Fauci still even has the floor at all is astounding. But
It really is. It
it
really
just
is.
shows how some people have this like get out of jail free card that others don't. And like George Carlin said, it's a big club and we're not in it.
And we're not in it. That's right.
So
You're right.
you can tell by the biasness of the media and how it's not journalism, it's, you know, programming, and like they tell you it's TV programming.
Right.
You watch your program.
Absolute propaganda at this point. It's never been more evident ever than today. It's so evident the things that they're trying to do. They are trying to take our guns, and they are trying to make silence us. They are trying to do all those things. And again, if all you have to do is turn the TV on, and it's evident. There's only one thing going on the television, on every television, every late night show, the same dialogue, same thing. And it's been pointed out several times, clip after clip after clip. We don't see it. You know what I mean? It's fine. It's rules for me, not for thee. And we've been seeing it again, way more evident in this last year than ever before. And when we saw it before, it wasn't government really getting away with it. It's exactly what they were pushing for it to be today. It was cops getting away with everything. Corrupt cops, and not necessarily corrupt government, but the guys on the smaller scale that were doing the corrupt things, the mayors and you know, all the things that, you know, that's what it was just a few years ago. The Occupy movement was, you know, Wall Street and the rich guys and this and that. And now the movement seems to, you know, we're just really confused. We don't like the rich guys, but at the same time, we're giving the rich guys all of our money because the rich guys seems to be the most woke out of all of of us.
They know what to do with it. I'm not happy about it, but
right, exactly. They know
make use of it.
Exactly. Pride Month alone is evident of how woke everybody seems to be, and they're just shut up and take my money. Don't you understand? This is what you were fighting against 18 years ago. We are the 99. I remember We Are the 99. I was there because I'm the 99.
Isn't that so clever how they change the angle or the aim from being like old rich white guys, you know, and like rich, and it being like a division of class and things like that, to it being don't you hate white guys? You know,
right?
Like,
exactly.
Forget the wealth aspect of it, but like
right.
White people.
Just in general, yeah, exactly.
and the Biden even made an announcement recently that like the biggest threat facing America and the world today is white supremacy.
Yep.
Said our white free leader of the free world.
Right. Said the rich white man. Yeah. Spot on, fella. Speaking of rich white man, yes, thank you so much. Hunter Biden's text messages. So we don't have the text messages themselves.
We do. We're going to
play. You do have them.
So we're going to play the video of other people reading them.
Okay. So we're going to bring up a video of another podcast who was actually able to read them. I would like to do it myself because I think it would be hilarious, but I'm not going to do it. That being said, okay, before we play the video now.
Want me to pause them?
Yeah, real quick.
Where'd I go? We're fine.
You're there. I see ya.
Okay.
Now I grew up in Long Beach. speaking of, we're just going to talk cultural here. Okay, so in Long Beach, it wasn't uncommon for people of any race, because we're a melting pot here, to say the N-word. It was a term of endearment. It's a term like saying bro or dude. I don't say it anymore because I have kids and I don't want them saying it. I don't want them hearing it, and they haven't yet to this day, thank God. But so the way he was saying these words, it was casual. I don't want to say that he's specifically racist, although I do think that whole family is racist.
Right.
I do think he was kind of making fun of it, but I want to put it out there that it's a very common word these days. A lot of kids use it. A lot of young kids use it. It's used in memes all day, every day. I don't think it's a word that should be taken too serious. Personally, I don't think it's a word that should be taken too seriously anymore, because then it just continues the stigma and it continues the hate. If it's just a word, then it's just a word, just like fuck and bitch and any other word that you want to say is derogatory or offensive.
Take that, YouTube.
Right, exactly. Excuse me, you guys. But anyway, so
for example,
again, vagina, pussy. I don't know. I mean, I hate that word, by the way. So anyway, yeah. So that I'm just my own personal disclaimer.
Right.
I don't think anybody and everybody who uses that word is racist. I do think I do think you have to grow up, and you can't be a 45, 50-year-old person saying that word and not think you don't look ridiculous. So I'm just gonna throw that out there and just say, grow up, Hunter Biden. So yeah, let's play a video. I'm in.
Right.
Yeah.
It's funny that this word has even been gone through its own movement with people like Dave Chappelle, and that it's had its own scene where it was the new like black and proud, where you were embracing that identity as like a reclaiming.
Right. And that was happening just a few years ago even.
Right. So,
right. Okay.
The climate keeps shifting. So here's the email.
Yeah.
Did you just fictional character from the imagination of the collective frightened, and my dead brother's unconditional love is what I should rely on, and my kids aren't children, George.
The most offensive part of this is the sentence structure, and that someone unknowingly would read this and assume that it's a black person writing it.
And it's definitely not.
It's a white person perpetuating a negative stereotype. You'd see it. You're like, oh, they said the N-word. Of course, they're black. This is horrible. We need better educational systems in inner cities. No, it's a white guy who's smoking parm or a soft Gouda.
This next one's not too bad.
Funny though. He's trying to act like he's sober.
Right.
It's like it's unconditional love. I found God. Like, I don't think you have.
Yeah.
Next one's not too bad. He just says nice true dat.
Yeah.
And he also says nigga. So true dat nigga at the end.
Yep.
That's Hunter.
This is all Hunter Biden.
I know this lawyer's like $800 an hour, and it's still not worth it.
Go to the next one here.
It says, there is zero from Hunter's lawyer. There's zero coverage or pickup of this story. Zip, I believe, talking about the laptop.
Yeah. To which Hunter replied, "Wow, thank you, Michael Cohen."
And then
other text here.
Other text I've read. I'm sorry for sexting you accidentally. That was meant for another friend named Georgia.
He also says, "My penis of late has been unconditional." Whatever that means.
And then
it's a big penis, George. I only love you because you're black.
Yeah, which is, well, I guess that's sort of reverse racism.
It's weird.
Yeah, it's love, right?
Yeah, it's love.
So we can give them the benefit.
It's love. It throws you off with the repeated use of the N-word, I guess. But hey, you know what they say with this, obviously. I want to be clear. It's not his fault. Like father, like son.
Yeah.
Wow.
So this family, how many free passes do they get? How many there's nothing to see here?
Right.
Do they get?
Right. Agreed. I don't know. Joe Biden, there's so many videos of him basically attacking black folks in general from the 1980s. Basically saying that black people, the bar has to be lowered for them, that they don't have the ability to do certain things. He used the typical term articulate several times for specific black people that he was impressed by.
They're clean.
You know what I mean? I think, yeah.
They were too. That's
wow. He's mentioned in the 80s several times how if we don't put a stop to them now, some of them are gonna run rampant and run tag. I don't know exactly what he said, but
it'll be a jungle. He said.
Oh, is that what he said? He said he called it a jungle even. Wow, interesting. He's this is a tough one because, it's not a tough one. It's a frustrating one because there's been so many people whose lives have been destroyed for saying the exact same word in the exact same casual way. Again, there's been others who have said it and have been hateful about it. And they've been caught doing that, and the consequences are what they are. Is there a difference? For me personally, yeah, I think so. Being that I work in comedy and I aspire to work in comedy continuously. I do think there's a difference. I think there's a way to use it when there's endearment involved. There's a way to use it when you're trying to be funny, and there's definitely a way to use it when you're being extremely hateful. And is it, whether it's necessary to have around or not? Probably not, but it is what it is. I'm not going to be the one to take it away. It's just going to be a word that's going to exist, and it's going to be up to us whether we're going to use our emotions and our feelings to make it a word of that is the enemy, or make it a word that's just a word. So the same goes for any other word. But my fear is for me, it's not so much that Hunter Biden said the word specifically. He's on drugs. He thinks he's cool. He thinks he's young. These are all typical aspects of a pathetic old white guy. You know what I mean? That's all that is to me. That aside, I don't think he should be canceled. I don't think his life should be ruined for it, because then it goes back to anybody personally, like people like me or people like you saying anything. Well, nope, bring it back. Sorry. That goes back to free speech. So we have to understand and balance out. I'm not gonna, this is the one thing where and I kind of twist it around, I suppose, where I don't think I can badmouth Hunter Biden, where it's like, no, he needs to get his life ruined. Yeah, I feel like he should, but for other reasons, like his pedophilia and his father's pedophilia and things like that. Not necessarily stupid saying the N-word to his lawyer in a text message. Mm-hmm. I believe that should be in the news, because if it was Donald Trump Jr. or any other white guy politician or white guy celebrity, it'd be all over the place in the news.
Right.
It's just literally the simple fact that it's Hunter Biden.
He would have had to do his apology tour and all that.
Right. No, he's in fact, he's making money selling a book. He's got books to sell right now. Yeah. So it's, these, again, like I said last week, these all go back to patterns, and these all go back to biases, and just, it's a matter of us saying, this is ridiculous now. I want to hear more about Hunter Biden, or I want to hear more about this. And why is the news telling me about this? I'm going to change the channel. I don't want to watch this anymore. I'm going to find my own sources. I'm going to do this and that. And we can find our own sources. And it's a lot to weed through. You know what I mean? The truth is out there, but it is hard to find. And the truth is, you're not going to find it out there. You're going to find it here and here. It's going to come to you, and it already has come to us. It's been a whole year since something's not right here. This isn't right. Something's not right here. A whole year of it. And we just can't put our finger on it. And the ones that do are crazy. So again, it's for me, the Hunter Biden thing isn't that big of a deal, with the exception of the hypocrisy behind it. Why are we canceling certain people and others we aren't?
And it also signals me too, when they have these kinds of headlines, it's always like the story behind the story. And like we've pulled up the gematria before on a lot of keywords that they have. And even the N-word has its like grammatical and linguistic origins in other words, like the Nagas, which are like the snakes that go toward, like with the Kundalini rising. And so it might be, hinting towards that as part of like the Great Awakening of this, like signaling this next stage where the Nagas are released, or the Negus, like Negus, I believe are like kings in Africa or in the Moors. So it was like a position of, so it kind of reminded me of that other story with the horses that were their freedom was in question from the other BLM of land management mishandling the horses. So like when they have little stories like this, there's a story behind the story for like those that have ears, let them hear, like as much as you can be like, oh, they're so biased and this is propaganda and it's so controlled. At the same time, nothing is being said for nothing. you know, like
Right.
it's very intentional, all the words that go through the TV, you know, even when it seems like it's off the cuff or you know, improv or whatever, like it's all those things are very constructed and rehearsed, and that's how you do the whole smoke and mirrors into this like weird contorted reality that we're living in, is through like being able to direct the frame of view of what people are able to look at and perceive, and their sense of their environment and all those things. And that's what they've been puppeting, string pulling for us to focus on. And, you know, the other big elephant in the room being, of course, the border, where this has been a huge story that blew up over a month ago, and that Kamala Harris was put in charge of the border, and that it's taken this much time for there to be any connection of or mention of the two since.
5 months.
Now, right. So now
5 months.
So
Yeah.
now she's doing her tour, but she just so happened to meet with different dignitaries, but didn't actually visit the border itself to see the circumstances of the facilities and how these children are being taken care of and all of those things and processed and whatever.
Right. She flew over it and into Guatemala, and Guatemala basically said, go home. We don't want you here, which I thought was kind of cool. There was a lot of protesters that basically they were disgusted by her presence. At the end of that conference, when she was there, she basically said, don't come. Oh, I sent you that clip.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was hilarious, by the way. But you know, the clip where she's basically telling them, everybody stay the hell where you're at. We don't want you. And one, if Donald Trump had said it the way she said it, basically, sorry, there'd be hell to pay, because she wasn't nice about it. Two, she still hasn't gone to the border. And again, she's been appointed to the border for the last 5 months. Three, when she was asked and prodded about the border by Lester Holt on Tuesday or Wednesday, she was interviewed by him. He said, have you gone to the border? Well, we've gone to the border. We've gone to the border. We've gone to the border. Have you gone to the border? Mm-hmm. Well, I haven't gone to the border, but I haven't been to Europe either. Right. Like, what the hell?
I don't see your point that you're trying to make here.
Like, exactly. That's what she said. What's your point? Like, what is your point? Are you fucking kidding me? I mean, I just, oh my goodness. That bothered me. I really can't. I really can't with these people. And AOC actually did condemn her a little bit for it. She did say something. I don't know what she said, but sidebar, AOC. It was so funny. Last week, she bitched about her grandma, her abuela, not being able to live comfortably in her ancestral home because Donald Trump didn't send money to Puerto Rico.
Oh yeah.
And then so Matt Walsh, a conservative, started a GoFundMe for her abuela, even though the broad owns a Tesla, makes $750,000 a year. I could be exaggerating that, but she makes a buttload of money. And it's like, well, let's start a GoFundMe for your
got like 2 houses or something.
Right. Since you can't help her. And yeah, they totally declined the GoFundMe, which is fucking hilarious. So hilarious. Yeah. I mean, what an idiot. Why would she do that?
This is Trump's fault.
Yeah, it's all Trump's fault, but I have money. At least I have money. You know what I mean? Like, screw my grandma.
Read the room, you guys. They're so
right. God, they're idiots. They really are. They're idiots. Good Lord. Dang, my phone's gonna die. But I
think we can wrap it up.
I am glad we brought up Kamala. I know we're gonna have a quick meeting. Okay, hold on, you guys. So summer solstice, and then Alex Jones next one.
Sorry.
Did you cut it off?
I paused it for a sec and then I so we're on again.
Oh, are we recording? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna wrap it up with you guys on this episode. I'm sorry this episode was a little chaotic. I had an important phone call right in the middle of the cast, and I apologize for that. It will never happen again. But Miss Kali obviously took it and ran with it, and I thank you so much, my dear, for doing that. You're amazing. We hope this episode was fun, nonetheless. We hope it was very informative. Do me a favor, take the fucking mask off and don't ever put it back on again. We can do this together, you guys. I promise you we can do this together. If you haven't died yet, you're probably not gonna. I'm gonna remind you guys of that yet. And I'm talking about COVID, okay? I shouldn't be putting shit out there like that. But I'm saying we have more power than we think.
Good job, everyone.
Beat the entire scene.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
But
thank you again for all your work. Yeah. You're amazing, my dear. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Adoya, yeah. So we hope you'll join us soon on the summer solstice, where we are going to be hosting our first ever hot girl vaccine summer cleanse for yeah, take that COVID for, you know, everybody who has either been vaccinated or just exposed to somebody who has. Let's all just, you know, take care of our immune systems and be healthy. Why not? For reasons. And we're gonna start on Sunday, June 20th. And yeah, so we're gonna have some links in the description box down below, so you can clicky clicks on that for more information. And yeah, we'll to be continued, because we will go into more details on our next cast as we get closer to the date. But
absolutely good stuff, man. And man, the next cast is actually going to be fun. It's already being planned out. We already got things that we have ready to go for you guys. So the next one's going to be a fun one. So I kind of can't wait to record it with you guys. So yeah, I've been your host in the studio, Miss Kali. Thank you so much for everything you do for all of us. And we want you guys to stay focused, stay vigilant, start getting prepared. We got things to look forward to. Keep the mask off, and we love you guys. Bye.
Love you guys.